What is up guys, I am James, welcome back to Kit Guru. I've finished the AMD Behemoth project now, and I was thinking maybe because that's finished I might take a bit of time off, relax a bit and maybe go on a Caribbean holiday or something like that. However, Deepcool had other ideas and they've sent along a couple of new products that they think you guys may be interested in. We think that as well, so we've got a new case and we've got a new dual tower air cooler to look at. But before we take a look at those, make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you enjoy watching this video, hit the like button. If you don't, then don't bother. If you want to help support Kit Guru, go and buy some merch from the store. And as always, if you want to catch up on the in-depth technical reviews, head over to the website. So before we jump into this video, I just want to do something that I know Leo and Luke both love for some reason. I don't really understand this peel business, but here goes anyway. That's one side off. We can remove the side panels of this case easily with 2 thumb screws, and that's the other one off, so that's that out of the way. First I'm going to look at this case. So this is the new Deepcool CG560, I think I've got that name right. You can also get this as a CG540, and instead of this airflow front panel on the 540, it is a tempered glass panel. So this is available to purchase in October and it's priced at $74.99 MSRP. It is just a typical mid-tower chassis. Probably say a few years ago we'd call this a compact mid-tower chassis, but this is like an average size for the mid-tower ATX these days. And as you can see on the front panel, we've got like a crosshair mesh. Can't really call it a mesh, but we've got a crosshair vented front panel. The reason they call it a crosshair front panel is because these cutouts kind of resemble a crosshair. It does look a little bit like the crosshair I use in CSGO. I've reviewed quite a few Deepcool cases recently, 310p and the 110 and also the CL500. One thing about those Macube cases in particular was how well built they felt. There's always, you know, quite a sturdy feel to them, and in particular the front panels were made out of steel, so they were, you know, quite solid build. Something I noticed almost straight away with this CG560 is the front panel, and it doesn't seem to be quite up to that same kind of build quality as the Macube case. As you can see, it's quite flexible, and there's a reason for that. So if you pull it off, it is entirely made out of plastic, and you can see that it is not a very rigid plastic either. It's really flexible. So I'm not sure what to think about that. What do you guys think about that? Do you think that that is good quality? I mean, this is a case that's priced at $74.99, so I wouldn't call it a high-end case, but I also wouldn't put it in the budget sector either. It's like a mid-range case, so I don't know, it seems like a little bit of a letdown, that to me. But it should offer some good airflow by the looks of it. You've obviously got the crosshair pattern, and also up either side as well, there's 2 vents there. In the top there's a cutout as well for ventilation, and at the bottom as well, the area that used to pull it off, that's also got a cutout that allows some extra ventilation. And then behind the front panel is a dust filter, just one of those cheap magnetic type. Again, that seems like quite a cheap solution. And then behind that as well, you can see it comes pre-installed with 3 RGB fans, so they're 120mm fans. On the top you get 2 USB 3.0 ports, a single microphone and headphone socket, power button, and then an LED button, and that's to control the RGB lighting, colours and patterns of the included fans. Another dust filter on top, simply just magnetic one again, and you can see on the top of the case more space for fans. There's none pre-installed on the top, but you do get one more fan in the rear. That's a 140mm fan, and that's just a plain black fan, so no RGB in the rear of the case. But you are still getting quite good value for money in terms of the fans. 4 fans included in a case at £75. That sounds pretty good, especially 3 of them being RGB fans. Inside, it's a typical layout that you get these days. There's no 5¼ drive bays or anything like that, so it's a nice spacious and open layout. In terms of cooling, you can fit up to 6 120mm fans in here, or 540mm fans. Radiator support in the front, you can fit either a 280 or a 360, obviously a 240 will fit in there as well. And then up top, you've got the choice of either 240 or 280 in the top of the case. You could install a 120 radiator in the rear, but usually in a case of this size, that's probably better for just, you know, 140mm or 120mm exhaust fan. So it looks pretty spacious inside. There's nothing really that stands out in terms of, you know, innovative features or anything in this case. You have got a full cover power supply shroud, has a cutout as well for the 360mm radiator to fit down. Got a good amount of cutouts for cable management, so there's 2 at the bottom, 2 at the top, and then 2 down the side. These ones down the side have rubber grommets, the rest don't. Round the back again, it's a typical layout. Power supply at the bottom, 7 PCIe slots, and then the rear I/O cutout. Obviously the 120 and 140mm fan shroud as well is there. To remove the other side panel, this is just a normal steel side panel. Just unscrew the 2 thumb screws, slides off and lifts out. They're actually easy to remove and install. These, they slide in and out of position really easily, so that's nice. You get a small bag of accessories with the case, so some additional screws for hard drives, motherboard installation, a few zip ties, and there's also an RGB cable in there as well. While we're on the subject of RGB, up at the top of the case you get this RGB controller that is powered by a SATA power, but it also has a little warning label on here saying not to connect this SATA power if you want to connect directly to the motherboard, and you can do that by using the RGB cable that came in the accessory pack. So as well, on the back here we've got plenty of points to tie cables down. The way Deepcool does it on these chassis is these folds here on the motherboard tray, they have some little eyelets scattered around where you can tie the cables down to. There's also some areas here you could tie cables down to, and then a few along the bottom of the power supply shroud as well. It's quite a wide chassis this, and the good thing about that, at the top your AIO radiator fits towards the front of the chassis, which then leaves you a bit of space towards the motherboard. Maybe you can even get in and install the EPS power connector with it being wide, but the downside of that is the motherboard tray seems to be moved really as far back as possible, so you don't get a huge amount of space for cable management. There's about 20mm of space, so it should be enough for just a standard system with an air cooler, maybe with an AO, but if you wanted to put some water cooling here where you have extra cables for your pump res combo, CPU blocks and everything else, you might be struggling a little bit for space there with cable management. But I don't think, probably Deepcool didn't really have custom water cooling in mind when they made this case, but it does look like there might be some kind of mounting there for pump res combo. That does remind me actually about something that I really liked about the Macube cases, was the GPU support bracket. So on the motherboard tray here you had a little device that you could move up and down, lock it in place, and it would support the graphics card, stopping any sag in the graphics card. We don't have that in this case, and that is quite disappointing. That probably was a feature that might make you choose one of the Deepcool cases over something else at the same price point, so it's a shame that's missing. Around this right hand side we've also got storage options, so there's 2.5 drive mounts there, so you can mount 2 SSDs in there, and you can also see in the bottom of the case we've got a 3.5 inch drive bay, and down there as well you can fit 2 3.5 inch drives. Flip the case over, you can see we've got some feet on the bottom of the case and they raise it up about 20mm, so that should give you some nice airflow into the power supply. You can see that 3.5 inch drive bay can be removed, it can be repositioned as well, so that allows for the radiator installation. And also at the back you've got a little removable filter. Again, it's a very cheap design with just a bit of perforated steel mesh. So there's not been a lot of expense spared on this case, I don't think. I think where the majority of the expense has been put in by Deepcool is in these RGB fans. So it's a little bit disappointing seeing the quality of the front panel and that missing GPU support bracket as well. I really would have liked to have seen that. So that's enough about the case. Let's have a look at this new AK620 dual tower CPU cooler. Deepcool's had a bit of a change in its branding lately, so the Gamer Storm look, that's gone. and you've got this more subtle and a little bit more grown up looking packaging. It looks quite smart, I like the look of that. So naturally inside the box you've got the cooler, it's all pre-assembled. Also got a base plate which looks like it's for Intel, fan splitter, so that's a 2-to-1 fan splitter, and then some brackets, they look like AMD brackets, and then another mounting bracket for what looks like Intel installation. You also get this weird angled screwdriver thing and a little tube of thermal paste. So I'm already quite liking the look of this AK620. I like this design on the top, it's not too much in your face, nice and subtle. Also really like the look of these chunky, really square 120mm fans. The AK620 is available in September and it's priced at $59.99, which sounds good for a dual tower cooler. Looks a bit smaller than the Deepcool Assassin 3, more similar size to the D15S, and actually it would be quite interesting to see how this performs compared to the D15S, because I think this is a bit cheaper than the D15S. As I said, it's quite nice looking and it's got 6 heat pipes. Comes with a warning sticker on the base, so there's no thermal compound pre-applied. Deepcool 120 FDB fans, these have a speed range of 500 to 1850 RPM, 4-pin PWM control, 160mm tall, and then the width across is about 135mm, so it should fit quite easily into most mid-tower chassis. Probably also will fit a lot of micro ATX chassis as well, and like I say, it's a nice looking cooler. It'd be nice if they did it in an all black version as well. I think that'd look really well. Fans clip on using the normal spring type clips, so you can probably get away with a bit of up and down adjustment on the fans. Same with the central one. I think you'll probably have to remove this for installation anyway. You can see it is a dense aluminium fin stack, and as I've said, 6 heat pipes that contact directly with the base. They're not direct contact to the CPU, but they are contacting directly with the base, and it looks like they may be soldered into the base as well. So it'll be interesting to see how this performs and how easy it is to install, because that's what this video is about, really, seeing how it is to work with these parts, this CPU cooler and the case in the real world when you're building a system. And we'll also do a bit of testing on this as well, see how it performs against the D15S and see what the airflow panel's like on that case, see if we get good thermal performance in the whole system. So according to Deepcool, the CG560 is designed for high performance systems, so we're going to put that to the test, because we've got the X570 Steel Legend from ASRock. CPU is a AMD Ryzen 9 5900X, 12 cores, 24 threads, and graphics we're using this from Sapphire. This is the Radeon RX 6800 Nitro Plus. Storage is this Kioxia XG6P. This is only a PCIe Gen 3x4 drive, but it is 2 TB, so plenty of storage. Memory is this G.Skill Trident Z RGB 32GB kit, DDR4 3600, C16 and 4x8GB modules. CPU cooler is this AK620 from Deepcool. I don't think we'll need any additional fans because we've got 4 fans, 3 RGB and then just the standard black one in the rear. And then the power supply is the DQ750M V2L, also from Deepcool, and that's an 80+ gold rated unit. So let's get on with this build and see just how good this CG560 is at housing a high performance system. Right, so I've just installed the CPU, memory and the M.2 drive to the motherboard. I was just about to apply some Arctic MX5 to the CPU and install the CPU cooler, but then I just noticed something about this AK620 that I thought might be worth mentioning. So in the kit you get brackets for all current mainstream Intel and AMD desktop platforms. but you don't get LGA 1700. Now the reason that I mention this is I know that some vendors are supplying the LGA 1700 bracket with CPU coolers already. Now that might not be a problem to most people that are just going to install this into the system and forget about it, but for somebody like me that likes to swap coolers between different platforms, having the LGA 1700 bracket would have been a benefit. So I got in touch with Deepcool and they've said that anybody that has already bought an AK620, they will be entitled to a free LGA 1700 bracket closer to the Alder Lake launch. So you just have to get in touch with the Deepcool customer services through their ticket system and you should have an LGA 1700 bracket. That sounds like a perfectly reasonable solution to me, so I'm going to carry on applying some of this MX5 and installing this CPU cooler. Okay, it's done. We have a fully built up system, and as I've found recently with other Deepcool cases, it was a really pleasant experience building a system inside this CG560. We did probably make things a little bit easier for ourselves with the choice of hardware. So because of this air cooler, there's plenty of space at the top to get your hand in for, connecting up the EPS power, fans and anything else that is located at the top of the motherboard. Everything lines up as it should do, the motherboard standoffs, installing the graphics card, screwing that in place, all went really smooth. Plenty of space in here because there's no 5¼ inch drive bay, so it is a really nice case to build a system in. As long as you're not going too daft probably with the setup, maybe with an AO fitted in the roof, it's going to be a bit more difficult to get your hand in and to connect anything up there. So this is quite a long graphics card as well. Looks like there's plenty of space at the front, even if you did have a radiator fitted there as well. So if we spin it round to the back, again, because of our choice of hardware, cable management was easy. There is just enough space for this amount of cables. Like I said previously, if you started adding a lot more stuff, like more RGB cables, more power cables, maybe if you'd put a couple of SATA drives in, a couple of hard drives in, it might have got more difficult with the cable management, but this has turned out really nicely. The only minor gripe I've got with the case, again, is something I've mentioned earlier, and this system would have really benefited from it, is that GPU support bracket, because you can see there is a bit of sag on this graphics card, and if that GPU support bracket had been fitted like it is in some previous Deepcool cases, we would have been able to take the slack up on that graphics card, and it would have just put the finishing touch on the system. We don't have that in this case, and I think that is a shame. It wouldn't have cost a lot more for Deepcool just to add that like they have done in the previous case, and then I have actually noticed that there is some other vendors that are adding that to their cases as well, so it's a shame that's missing. But installing the system in the case was fine, no problems really, other than the GPU support bracket. Also installing the cooler, again, really straightforward. You just had to put the standoffs on the motherboard. It uses the stock AMD retention backplate, so you just screw in the standoff, screw on the brackets, and then just put the cooler in place and then tighten up 2 screws that holds it in place and clip on the fans. We did have to slightly raise this front fan by only probably less than 5mm to clear the RAM. That's pretty good RAM clearance. The Trident Z isn't the tallest RAM, so if you had something like, I don't know, Corsair Dominator or something like that, you would probably have to raise that fan a little higher. Maybe with this cooler you could get away without running that fan and just run the central fan, so it's not really a big deal. For probably most memory modules, the clearance is good enough, and the overall experience installing this was fine, and I think it looks really nice as well. Got a good combination of colours going on here with the silver and black, and I think overall the system has turned out looking really nice. So earlier on in this video I mentioned how I wanted to measure the thermal performance specifically of the AK620 against the Noctua D15s. So what I've been doing is running the system up to temperature, fully stressing the system by simultaneously running the Heaven benchmark and Cinebench R23. So I've run that test for 30 minutes, logged the temperatures using HW Info, and that has given me an average temperature of the CPU throughout the test. During the test, all the fans in the system were set to their silent profile using the ASRock BIOS, so that includes the case fans and the fans on the CPU cooler. And I ran the case in its default configuration, so all panels fitted, dust filters attached, side panels as it would come out of the factory, with the 3 fans in the front and the 1 in the rear. I ran the stress test first using the AK620, let the system completely cool down, removed the 620 and then installed the D15s. Ran the same test again, let the system cool, and then I've switched back to the AK620 for this demo. During the test as well, the ambient temperature in the room was between 22 to 24 degrees C, but the temperatures that you see in the chart are deltas, so that means the ambient room temperature has been deducted from the temperature readings. And as you can see, there's nothing in it between the two. The average CPU temperature with the AK620 installed was 50.1 degrees C. The Noctua D15s recorded a very similar temperature, 51.6, which we'll say is within margin of error. So there really is nothing in it between the two in terms of thermal performance. The AK620 is considerably cheaper than the D15s at $59.99, about £20 between the two. One thing worth mentioning is that the AK620 does come with 2 fans, and that is how it was run during our thermal performance test. The D15s only comes with 1 fan. That's how we ran it in the test as well. You could potentially add another fan to the D15s, but again that would raise the price another £20 to £25. So the AK620 is looking like it's quite good value for money at the moment, and it is a nice looking cooler, I think, as well, so probably worth considering if you're looking at a dual tower air cooler. So if I was to give these two a mark out of 10, I'd probably say for the CG560, I'd give that an 8 out of 10 because it is a nice looking case. It's okay to build a system in, there's nothing wrong with it. Structurally, it's pretty solid. Everything lines up nicely, like the motherboard standoff. GPU went in easily, so overall it is a decent case. It's got good airflow, but it's just slightly let down by that bendy front panel that seems a bit cheap, and the fact that Deepcool has taken away that GPU support bracket. But the AK620, I'm really impressed with that. It's a nice looking cooler, it's easy to install, and thermal performance is spot on for the price as well. So I'll give that a 9 out of 10. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you are interested in either the case or the CPU cooler, you can pick them up very soon. Case is $74.99 and the AK620, that's $59.99. Thanks for watching. Don't forget, if you've enjoyed this video, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Also, if you want to help support Kit Guru, go and buy some merch from the store, or you could even subscribe to our Patreon. And as always, head over to kitguru.net to catch up on the in-depth technical reviews. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.